Hi, this is Jeff Person. I'm the USAFL Umpires Association head coach. And what we're going to do tonight is a virtual clinic that is going to cover three topics. We're going to go over the umpire accreditation update for a few minutes. We are going to hit the new USAFL rules for 2024. And there's a few of those that are minor, but we'll cover those so you're aware of that going into the season. And then we'll try and spend the bulk of our time with the interactive field and goal umpiring positioning tool that we have access to. And the idea there is to give you the ability to see how umpires are supposed to position themselves on the field. And there's a virtual clinic or virtual ability without having to be on field. And you can then translate that into your on field work as you go into the season. All right. So first, let's see, let's get this right. We're going to go over the accreditation process. Oh, wait, I have to share my, am I sharing, Sid? I forgot to hit share. All right, my bad. Going too fast. Share screen. There we go. All right, so there it is. That's the head to the agenda for the clinic tonight. Umpire accreditation update, new USAFL rules 2024, and then the interactive field and goal umpiring positioning. So we're going to go through all three of those, starting with the umpire accreditation process. And for that, I'm going to hit our website. And hopefully everybody has been referring themselves to this on a regular basis as we get through the off season and then into the 2024 season. I'm specifically going to focus today on this umpire accreditation pull down menu. We have, thanks to Sid and his helpers, we have added some additional pages underneath this. It used to be a single page, which I have pulled up right now, but there are additional pages that we have access to. One is for the UA videos. Since 2021, after COVID, we have been recording these videos and doing them virtually rather than doing them at the regional and national tournaments. And so we have 7 of these on this page right now, going back to 21 when we first started recording these. So please, by all means, go back and look these over, especially if you're newer or you're taking on a new discipline or want to remind yourself of something. Some of these things have the AFL umpire assistance. There's one that Chris Donlin, who is one of the most long tenured AFL umpires. He did a long clinic on decision making and had a lot of AFL clips. We've got others on there that are about the accreditation process and so on and so forth. The most recent one last month was on match management. Matchmaking is a completely different thing. I don't know if you've seen the movies about that, but we're going to skip that piece tonight. So underneath here, we've got UA videos, and those are all available rather than having to go searching through the depths of all the postings that we have on the front page here. We've just collected them onto a single page, so they're really easy to find. The second thing on here, and this is absolutely brand new, I've only referred one person to it so far just yesterday because it's absolutely brand new, the umpire pay rates. And so I'm going to flip to that one, which is, there's the videos. Where's my pay rates? Can't find my pay rates page. Maybe I lost it. I'll just go to it. All right, so the pay rates is something we've created, and it's going to go through the different categories of games, just as it's near and dear to every umpire's hearts. What am I going to get paid for doing this? So we have USAFL run events and then club events. USAFL events have a set pay rate, and it's listed here. And there's the field goal, boundary coach, and field marshal pay rates, which are used at the USAFL hosted events. That's the regional tournaments, the 49th Parallel Cup, as well as the Nationals tournament. So there's a pay rate set up for these, for the 20-minute halves. There's also a pay rate here for the national championships, for those division by division in men's and women's for those championship games, and then the 49th Parallel Cup, because that is a quote unquote full game at 4 20-minute quarters, or a pay rate set up for that as well. Those are set forth by the USAFL at the recommendations, or they're approved by the USAFL at the recommendation of the UA. That's relatively straightforward. USAFL sanctioned games are games that are not run by the USAFL, but run by a club or clubs, either a one-on-one or a tournament. And so we have had many, many questions over the years about what should umpires get paid. And then also people ask us, what should I pay the umpires that come to my tournament? And so we've been putting this together in order to help those clubs figure out what they should be doing to pay umpires. So from an individual match, that's a one-on-one, like say Nashville versus Chicago, which was just last Saturday, you can use this particular grid, if you will, for the candidates, the introductory certification, development accreditation, advanced accreditation levels for the various disciplines, field, goal, and boundary. You don't have to use them. You don't have to say as an umpire that I have to get paid this or I'm not coming. That's purely up to you to negotiate with the club and the club to negotiate with you. But here's something that would be for the 80-minute game. That's the 4 20-minute quarters, usually between two clubs and at least 14 players aside. Metro matches, these are the 40 minutes, not 80 minutes. And so the rates go down, as you can see. Same idea here. It's only 220s instead of 420s. And then tournament matches, essentially the same type of thing. Tournament matches are usually 40 minutes. The Metro matches are often 40 minutes, but they don't have to be. They could be 12 aside, 10 aside, something like that. Anyway, there's feedback from this. This is literally brand new, so feedback on this would be most welcome. And we're going to be rolling this out to make it available to clubs, and so they can have something to refer to. The first one that asked me about it yesterday was Wayne Graska from down in Georgia, so I'm going to ask him for some feedback, and we'll modify this page as appropriate to figure out what makes the most sense for paying umpires. Right. The last thing I want to touch on is there's a new, well, it's new to us, so to speak, but it's not new to business. If you're an independent contractor doing games outside of the USAFL, you've probably done this hundreds and hundreds of times. It's a W-9 form. If you're an independent contractor and you go to a school, which is where it's most often used, and you umpire their games, whatever sport it happens to be, they're going to have to do a W-9 to collect your social security number in case they have to submit a form at the end of the year for how much they paid you. The USAFL has not done this in the past, but it's a situation that they have to correct strictly from a business standpoint. It's not really a choice. So they've asked us to start getting the word out, and we're doing that right now, starting today, and it's on the website under that pull-down menu. Pull down the W-9, fill it out, and we need to send it in to the treasurer at USAFL. Starting this year at the regional tournaments and the national tournament, this has to be on file in order for you to get paid for the games you're going to do. It probably takes 2 minutes, and so it shouldn't be an issue. If you have any questions about it, by all means, reach out to John Mills, who is our president, or you can reach out to myself as well and ask questions having to do with the W-9 form. Okay. And so that is this right here, W-9. It's the third menu underneath the umpire accreditation. So the last two, the pay rates and W-9, those are absolutely brand new pages out there. And we need you guys to give us feedback and make sure that we have everything that you need so that you can be most effective as an umpire.
Jeff, there's a question about Canadian umpires and how they will be paid.
Yeah, so for our Canadian and other non-US umpires, the USAFL is working on how to address that, and we'll be rolling out that information when they make it available to us to post. So appreciate that question and that reminder. All right, from the accreditation process, and I'll finish up on this page here. I think just about everybody is familiar with it. There's a few newbies on who may not have actually been through this page. So if you have a question like, what is the accreditation process, or what are the levels, or how do I get my accreditation? It's spelled out in great detail on this page. What are the levels? There's new names that we adopted several years ago, but the old 0, 1, and 2 are now introductory certification, development accreditation, and advanced accreditation. There is a process that includes 2 parts: theoretical, which is doing stuff online and or on paper. And there is the practical, which means you're out on the field actually doing a game, being observed. And there's both parts of that are piecemeal or pieces of the accreditation process. There's the descriptions here of the different levels. There's also a coach accreditation process, which we won't cover tonight because that's not important for tonight. And then there are materials that you have access to, which are also on the resources page. There's a lot of resources out there. There are the laws, the spirit of the laws, the ultimate umpiring guide. There's a diary you can use. And I really encourage you, if you're new, to use this to keep track of things you want to work on, what kind of feedback you get. Who is my coach? That's me. And my staff, I've got about 5 or 6 umpire coaches that are at that first certification or first accreditation level as an umpire coach. And we are using them to help the rest of you work your way into the development accreditation, the advanced accreditation processes. And then there are the full set of materials listed down here. The ones at the bottom, the manuals here, whether the coach's manual and or the umpire's manual, I really encourage you to take a look at those. They're really old in terms of being from like the 2000s. I actually had to do these when I went through the accreditation process and fill these things out, literally every single page, and literally get every single page initialed by my coach. But there's a ton of material on there about positioning and rules and all kinds of good stuff. It's not a bad idea to download those, take a look at them, because it'll really help you, especially when you're getting started as an umpire, both in the terms of the goals and the field umpiring. I will say that if you are interested in your accreditation being renewed, I will be sending out something in hopefully by the end of the week. It might be next week, letting everybody know whether your accreditation at each level is up for renewal this year. And if so, you'll be notified of that. You'll have to get observed and be reaccredited. That's relatively easy to do because you've already been accredited at that level. If you are looking to advance, whether it's from the development accreditation to the advanced or from the introductory certification up to development accreditation, that is a process. And so back here where it says, not that one, this one up here, umpire accreditation, it is a process. So if you think you're going to show up to either the regionals and or the nationals tournament without having talked to me beforehand and say, can I get my accreditation? The answer is yes, next year, because accreditation is a process. If you do that, we will start you on that process at the regional tournament or the nationals, and then you can look forward to getting your accreditation the following year, having gone through the process and going through the coaching and the one-on-one feedback and so on and so forth. All right, I'm going to finish right there on the coaching and umpiring accreditation pieces. Are there any questions, Sid, before I move on?
Yes, there's a question about where people and teams can find the goal umpire scorecards. Is there a template? And if so, I'm looking online, there are a bunch of templates. We should probably put one on the website, but do you have an answer, a quick answer for that?
So the quick answer is there's not one of the USAFLs making out there at the moment. Toby, who has been doing the nationals tournament, regionals tournaments for years, he and I use a template every time we do the regionals and nationals tournament. So we have one. It's just not out there right now. But make a note, Sid, and we can certainly put a template out there. What we do is if you go to any of the Office Depot type stores and you get postcard material, it's a 8.5 by 11. It's got perforations where you cut it in fourths. And then the template allows you to print the goal cards on that size, which is the postcard size. So we can put something out there and you can add your own logos to it, et cetera. So we can do something like that. That's easy. What else?
Those are all the questions at this time.
Excellent. All right. Moving on, we're going to then hit the rules piece of it. And this is a document, I believe it's on the website now. If not, it will be shortly. So I'm not sure if the USAFL board has approved it yet. We've written it up. That's thanks to Steve Arnott. And the UA board has approved what we're going to do in terms of rule changes or rule adoptions for 24. As you can see here, there's a column about the year in which we adopted them. And it goes back, I think, 6 or 7 years now. So you can see all the different changes we've been making. So I'll run through these. I won't take a lot of time. They're relatively easy. And if there's questions about that, we'll go through that. And then we'll hit the third piece as quick as we can. All right, smothering. So when a player is leaving the ground in an attempt to smother a ball, any reasonably high, foreseeable high contact that would be low contact or low impact would be deemed careless at a minimum. So that's the type of penalty that the player would get for being careless. As Steve has pointed out, that came from one of the finals matches this past year. A player got concussed by somebody trying to do a smother and got him in the head. So it's kind of a weird thing. It shouldn't happen a whole lot. High contact of the smother should be a relatively unusual set of circumstances, but there's no reason we shouldn't adopt it. So we're going to adopt it because the USAFL we don't want to make changes unless we really have to. Right. Run down tackles. This has to do with when the person is tackling from behind and is tackling with force and driving the player into ground. What we want to make sure of is that you're not having that player doing the tackling landing on top of the person being tackled. If you see that, you just call it in the back straight away because they're not supposed to drive the player into the ground. If they've got the arms pinned and the head can't be protected, then you're looking at something more severe, which could be a 50 added onto it if it's not too bad, a yellow card if it looks bad, and it looks like it could cause injury, it could be a red card report. So run down tackles from behind is something we want to be careful of. It's part of player safety, and it's something that we as field umpires need to make sure that we're aware of, and we're taking responsibility for keeping those types of tackles out of the game. Striking. So the AFL is seeking to increase the onus on players to not commit a strike even when trying to fend and push their opponent. So most of the time a strike is going to occur when it's contact to the head. And so you can see players doing what you might see in the gridiron, the American football world. It's called a stiff arm, where you're giving a player a stiff arm to keep them away and keep their arms from being able to grab, hold it, and tackle you. But we also want to make sure that that is not contacting the tackler with high contact in the head, especially. So the purpose of that type of
Can I just add to that, Jeff?
Yes. What's that, Caleb?
So like the way we look at it, can I just add to that quickly? So the way we look at it in Australia with a high fend off, if like when it's
Hey, Caleb, you're breaking up.
If you're
Caleb, your speech is breaking up. Yeah, if you can just put something in the comments, put it in the chat, and then Sid can pick it up and we can get your materials there.
It's intentional and it's high contact.
Okay. All right, so we'll pick up Caleb's comment there because he's over in Australia where this rule has been implemented already. And then ruck contests, the interpretation of Rule 1814 to commit a straight arm block in a ruck contest, provided the player is still contesting the ball. So that's really not a big issue for us here, but there's really no reason for us to say we're not going to adopt it. The other one that I want to focus on has to do with standing the mark, which was a 21 change. We, at the time, back in 21, did not adopt standing the mark, but we're going to try to implement that this year. And so the way and we'll show that a little bit in the interactive piece, when there is a mark awarded, whether it's from a free kick or from taking the mark, we can tell the player to stand, which means they are pinned to the mark. And they're not allowed to move off that mark until there is a play on. And so I used it a couple weeks ago when Nashville played Columbus. It seemed to go pretty well. It's as long as you tell the players ahead of the game you're doing, I would do that this year. Just let them know you're going to be telling them stand and what you expect them to do when you say stand, so that they don't jump off the mark when they see the player leave. They have to wait for a play on. And then we changed the write-up here. If you look to the previous ones, we changed the write-up down here to say that we are going to trial this in 24 and see how it works. Part of the reason for that is we know that it's used in the Australia, obviously, and that in the international game outside of Australia, we know that they want as many of the AFL rules to be used. So we want our players here in the US to start getting used to hearing those stand and play on and knowing what it means, so that if they do play for the Freedom or the Revolution, or they for any reason go overseas and play with another club, which many have done, that they're not caught off guard and have no idea what that rule is all about. So we're going to try it this year, see how it goes, and we as the Umpire Association the board and the coaching group. We'll take a look at how it's going. We'll do a mid-year evaluation after regionals and see how it goes. And then at the end of the year after nationals, we will again take a look at it and see if we want to continue it or if we need to go back and take that out. And we'll just have to figure it out and see how it goes. A very old umpire has his hand raised. Steve.
Jeff, you want to explain the outside 5 call that the umpire makes as well?
So you're talking about the protected zone on a free kick?
Yeah, well, when the player gets a mark or a free kick, obviously you've got a mark. However, the player, as in where the man on the mark stands, but if a player doesn't run to the mark and stays outside, this is how I understand it, stays outside 5 meters, then the umpire calls outside 5, and there's essentially no one standing on the mark. But if a player does advance to the mark and the umpire calls stand, then they're pinned to the spot and they can't move. So it gives the players some flexibility in not going up and standing on the mark. At least that's how I understand it. I've never seen any interpretation or anything from the AFL about this, so it's just based on my observation. And that's what we trialed with the freeze a couple of weeks ago, and it seemed to work pretty well. So
okay.
If someone knows different, let me know.
Yeah. So, and those on the call and those who will be hearing and seeing all this stuff later when they're reviewing the recording, please be sure to let us know if you tried this in your games. Let us know how it's going, what's working and what isn't. Richard, you got your hand up?
I was just going to confirm what Steve's saying. So if you think about a normal protected area, which is the player on the mark, 5 meter sort of zone around them and around the players, if the defending player never goes into that protected area, particularly in the mark area, then they're not on the mark. They're outside 5, as Steve said, so they don't have to stand at that point. But the call is outside 5, just for clarity, so that both the player with the ball and the player on the mark know that the stand rule isn't being applied.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I appreciate all that input. Jeff Blankman, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to clarify, is this something like we're calling every time there's a mark, that the person standing on the mark, we say stand, which means to them that until I call play on, they can't move off the mark?
That is correct. And so as Steve and Richard were saying, if they haven't gotten to the actual mark where they would be pinned, you say
Outside 5.
Outside 5, and they can
Yeah.
still roam around. They still can't go in the protected zone. They can't get within
Right.
5 if they're coming from behind or from the side. That's not allowed. However, if they're standing back and they can then move side to side or come back off, etc., because they're not pinned to the mark at that point.
If they're outside 5 and they choose to come inside 5, then you call stand and they have to stand.
Unless you've already called outside 5 and then they can't come into the space.
They can
basically the umpire makes the declaration, okay, there doesn't seem to be anyone coming outside 5. That's
they
it, we're
could
done.
still come in and take the mark, but then they couldn't move. But it could be wrong on that.
So you wouldn't use it every time, but you use it as appropriate. Steve.
I just want the record to reflect that this is the stupidest, dumbest rule that has ever been introduced on the face of the earth. However,
Second the motion.
What I've told the freeze players is that, I'll call stand, but as soon as the player with the ball moves 2 millimeters off the line, I'm calling play on.
That's right.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how militant do we want to be about it? The AFL seems to be very militant about it in their games. I mean, I think we need to cut a bit of discretion here, particularly as we're learning, because there's going to be a lot of mistakes and it doesn't seem justified to be running 50-meter penalties every time someone, takes a step.
That's correct. So use your best judgment as to what was the intention of the player. If there was one kind of as Steve said, if the player moved 2 millimeters off the line, they just bolt forward before you've even had a chance to play on. That's not right, right? So you might give them a warning and say, hey, remember there's a stand rule. Don't do that again. So you could use that early in a match. And And then I like what Steve said about let the players know you're going to do it. And then, as others are saying, use your judgment and try, let's get them used to it. They shouldn't be moving that much off the mark anyway. But as Steve said, as soon as that player who's taking a free kick is off their line, you have to call play on. You should be doing that anyway, but this makes it even more important to call play on so that you don't get players saying, hey, they were over the mark or they left early, right? So as soon as they're off the line, you got to be aware of it. As soon as they're off, call play on. Okay. All right, so those are the new rules for 24. Sid, any questions in the chat that I need to be aware of, or anything from Caleb?
No questions, but Caleb did follow up and say, high fend off with eye contact is what we want to avoid. Players with the football cannot intentionally stick their hand into another player's throat or face. High contact, free kick.
Right.
And then he said, once a player takes a step or two off the line straight back from the mark, you should call play on so the player with the mark doesn't get caught with a 50.
Right. Yep.
And
All right, good stuff, guys.
then T-Bone said, do we have to apply the stand rule now?
You should try to use your best judgment for whether they're on the mark or not, and use the word stand and then call play on, and at least start using it. Try and start getting used to it. I've been doing it for a while, so it's going to be a little easier for me, but I knew this was coming, so I've been doing it. If you haven't done it before, go ahead and try it, see how it goes. And you've got half a dozen umpire coaches you can talk with about it afterwards, and let us know how you're doing. Okay.
No other questions at this time.
All right, cool. All right, now let's get into something we've literally never done before. And what I am going to do is show you, it's in PowerPoint, and it's called an interactive whiteboard. And so I'm going to go through some positioning of where umpires need to be around the field, various types of situations. Here is an overview, obviously, for a center bounce. We have one red player and one blue player in their semicircle for their half for a ball up or bounce. I just realized I've got a couple of things on here that don't belong. We have a field umpire who's going to administer the ball up. We have a second field umpire on one of the two opposite corners. You'll notice they're on opposite sides of the center circle. And we have two boundary umpires. If we have boundaries, this is where they would be for the two boundaries. And we have two goal umpires out here. So everybody should be pretty darn familiar with this. If there was a 3-umpire system, this is how we do interactive stuff, that other field umpire would be over here. So that's how we would start each game. And then this is what it looks like. Not quite from an overhead view. Let's see, let's get Ross in here. So here we have our central umpire, and we have two boundary umpires here. We got another field umpire out here, and our two goal umpires standing dead center behind their goals. You can see they're ready for action. So I've got all kinds of different icons here I can use to show you how things are going to go. So this is how the lineup looks from that view. Here's what it looks like for a shot on goal. Let me back up for just a second. Let's make this even more interactive. So let's see. Let me grab a ball. Here's a ball. So when that ball spills this way, out to this side, where does this field umpire go? This field umpire is going to move to stay side on as best as possible to the contest out this way. And then as that ball is kicked downfield, this field umpire is going to continue down. The boundaries back up to the boundaries. And then, oops, wrong. That's not what I want. The other field umpire is going to follow at about a 25, maybe 30-meter or 30-yard distance up the field as that ball travels upfield. Goes up a little further, they go up a little further, boundaries will slide down, the boundaries will come up. So that's how it's moving as the ball is coming out of that center circle. Let's just say that they kick it downfield straight away and there's a mark. So we're going to have a shot on goal. We have a field umpire here who's going to be watching the mark. We have a player here with the ball that's going to be kicking and a defender here. We have our boundary umpires, assuming we have them. I'm really focusing on where we use these at nationals, but if you have boundary umpires who are looking for accreditation or are accredited, this is what they should be doing. And we as field umpires and goal umpires should know this, regardless of whether we have boundary umpires or not. The goal umpires, and it's kind of funny, it's a G, but this is a boundary umpire. They are literally at the post, right? One on each side, and they're there to help the goal umpire. The communication is as they approach and come to here, if Sid is the goal umpire and I am the boundary umpire approaching, I'll say, Sid, I'm here on the post, or anything like that to let Sid know he has this post covered. And same thing on this side. This umpire would come down as a boundary and let Sid know that he's got this post covered for the shot on goal. What that does is it enables Sid as the goal umpire to position himself for that shot on goal. We know, depending on the distance being kicked, there's going to be a contest for that footy as it gets close to crossing the line. And I'm going to assume that's a good shot towards goal at this point. And that's what this line represents. When that shot comes in, we have one field umpire here and one field umpire here. This field umpire has responsibility for the contest. If there's a person on the mark and you've told them to stand, there may be a play on because they may want to come and get a better angle. So you have to make sure you're watching both the mark, because you have to call play on if there is a play on. And as soon as that ball is kicked, you're going to transfer control to your partner field umpire over here. Okay, this shot on goal is going to be, and you say it's a 50 here, so I would say anything from 30 and out, you want to have this kind of a setup. If the kick is a lot closer, let's say it's from in here, you don't need to have both umpires in. One umpire can do it. As a goal umpire, where do you set yourself up? Well, you got the ball here. You know this player who's got the mark, he is or she is going to back up on a line with the center of the goal line. And that's what this line represents. As the field umpire, you're going to be making sure that they are lined up correctly, and then you back away about 10, maybe 15 yards as appropriate. The other field umpire down here is going to be with probably the top of the goal square. That's the 9 meter or 9 yard mark, so that you can watch all the pushing and shoving and everything else that goes down along the goal lines or the boundary lines or the point lines here. If it's in a 3-man system, the other field umpire is going to hang out back here somewhere around the center circle and just make sure nobody does anything really stupid like throw an elbow back here. Obviously, that's only going to happen at a few games this year, potentially at grand finals at the regionals, and definitely at the grand finals for the nationals. So that's the setup for a shot on goal. The goal umpire will line himself or herself up with the center of the goal line and where the mark is. So this line will dictate where you want to start. There is a sort of a semicircle from one goalpost to the other. I don't want to move that. From this goalpost to this goalpost. You don't want to actually be on the line. You want to be just behind it. And in this case, Sid, being the proper goal umpire that he is, has lined himself up with the shot on goal. When that kick comes, assuming it's not terrible, and it's coming to this post, he can then close up to this post and see if it's, I'll put it up here so you can see a little better. That kick is high, so he's going to close to this post so you can see whether that ball is actually in or not in. And the definition of in means when you look up that post to infinity, that ball should be clearly inside the post. If it's over the post or not, it's a behind. Right? If it's kicked to the other post, it's hard to grab these things. Grab my goal umpire. So he starts here. If he needs to move to the other goal post, he's pretty close to that anyway. He simply comes up to the post, and notice he's on this side of the post because these players are probably going to be here. He's going to be on this post to be able to determine, did that ball go in, go over, or go outside the goal. In clearly is a goal, over and outside will be a behind. All right, let me pause there. And does anybody have any questions so far about shots on goal, field positioning, and goal positioning? I see 21, 22 comments up there. A bunch of them are new. Help me out, Sid.
Okay, a comment was goal umpires. Remember, you can always ask the boundary umpires for a consult if you're 50-50 on over the post. Will be positioned well to help you with your decision. Good
Okay.
point. And that's difficult when you don't have any boundaries, or the boundaries are not experienced or don't know how important that position is. And so that's where the communication between the field umpire and the goal umpire is so important. We had this at the Mid-Atlantic Cup a few times. That's why it's important, especially for experienced field umpires with new goal umpires, to give them a hand, because some of those wide shots are very difficult to tell whether it's out on the full or whether it's a behind.
Yep. All right, so following up on that, the communication, and this is level 2 stuff. This is the advanced accreditation stuff we look for. Here you are as a goal umpire, and you're moving to a shot that's near the goalpost. As that ball is going to be near the goalpost, you're going to tell your goal umpire, your boundary umpire, you don't need them because it's going to be your call. You say mine. You don't just say it, you're shouting it, tapping your chest, saying, this is my call. Right? Now, as a field umpire, I know the goalie is going to make a call because I heard this goal umpire say mine. They're going to make the call. I can help, but it's their call. If that ball is not well kicked and it's near this post, which is what Sid was just talking about, you will then, if you have a boundary umpire, you will say yours. And you can even use your arm and point to them. Kind of looks like he's almost doing it in this icon. You point to the goal umpire and say yours, meaning you are going to make this call, whether it's in for a behind, over the post, or outside for an on the full. As a boundary umpire, communicate back to your goal umpire to say, yes, I've got the call, and then whatever that call happens to be. It's either a point, in which case you back away and point to the goal umpire saying yours, because now the goal umpire is going, the goal umpire is going to be on this side of the goalpost and have to signal a behind. So the boundary will tell the goal umpire what to do. If it's going to be out on the full, then you blow your whistle and signal out on the full. Now the goal umpire can stay back here where they're normally going to be positioned. And then the boundary umpire, because it's going to be out on the full, will then be able to move back up field to be ready for that kick, because there'll be this defender or whoever it is will then kick the ball from here. Okay. Hopefully that communication bit helps in terms of those shots on goal when it is near the post, the behind post, as well as near a goal post. Richard, I see you had your hand up.
I was just over the call of mine or yours. I think I probably misunderstood what you said, but I thought you were saying that if the boundary umpire says yours, it means he wants the goal umpire to make a decision, but it means it's actually telling the goal umpire that it went through. It's a point, basically. It's your
Right.
Your,
the boundary umpire knows it's a behind.
Clarify that, yeah.
Yeah, so the boundary umpire knows it's a behind, but the boundary umpire doesn't make that call. Boundary umpire backs away, telling goal umpire, it's yours. You have to make the call because that's your job as a goal umpire, is to signal the behind and do the flags.
Yep, perfect.
Okay. And then Jeff Blankman's got his hand up. Still there, Jeff?
Yeah, I think that's up from earlier.
Okay, got it.
There we go. It's down now.
All right, cool. All right, so shots on goal. There's a number of things going on that both the goals and the fields need to know. Again, this is part of the moving up the accreditation ladder, doing these types of things correctly and properly. If there's any question at all, like let's say the ball is shot anywhere near here, players will be jumping up and down about it's a behind or it's a goal. This field umpire here who's making the call for the all clear, probably not going to see it very well. That's just not the best of angles. This field umpire might move around with the kick to help, If it's near a post, could help by moving back from here to here as the kick is being made. Okay,
Jeffrey, I have a leading question.
sure. Is that Ross?
Yeah. You mentioned the field umpire setting the mark might back off, say, 10 or 15 yards, given the importance of the protected area. How far should he move back, and what should he be doing when he moves back 10 or 15 yards?
So this field umpire here needs to be, let's put these guys back in place, give them the ball back. So you are looking for the mark to make sure that the player who is on the mark is not over the mark or doesn't jump over the mark during the kick, because that's an infringement. And if there's a play on, because this kicker decides it's too far and he's going to do something other than kick, you have to be ready for the play on. So that releases the defense, whether it's the defender on the mark or it's any other defenders who might be outside the 5-meter protected zone, that they can now go and try and make a tackle. Is there anything else I need to mention about that, Ross?
Just often with shots on goals, right? Often it's the field umpire setting the mark and sets that protected area being 10 yards back so that no one creeps into that protected area.
Right.
If he tends to play on, yeah.
Right. Yep. Okay. All right. Sid, is there anything else in the comment section that I need to answer? The chat
Yeah,
section?
there's some good answers going back and forth. Also, Caleb said that something AFL has really pushed for goal umpiring this year is your starting position. How far from the goal line are you? Are you lined up with the player on the mark for the set shots? Thing to consider to help you get to the correct position to get the correct score, or in other words, protect your goal area. And I think that's a very important point, especially for new goal umpires. And I worry about this too. Nobody wants to miss a call, but it's so much easier to start further back and move forward to make your call rather than trying to backpedal or sidestep to get in the right spot. You can see congestion with players. You can see the flight of the ball if it comes off their foot wrong. But if you're too close to the line and you have to move backwards, that's really slow. So think about it. It doesn't feel right. And some of us that come from umpiring other sports, you will get into the rhythm of being able to move forward and make the right call when you practice that, whether it's before games, at a clinic, having people just kicking balls like we do at regionals and nationals, or just getting in there and getting as many games as possible. But I'd say most, especially newer people, they're way too close to the line.
So the proper distance is what, 3 meters to 5 meters, depending on your speed?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've put some congestion here in the goal square. So clearly this is going to be a shot on goal. They're in range. And as the goal umpire, you now have a whole bunch of bodies to contend with. So if it's going to get kicked over this post, all these players are going to be moving in that direction. So you have a choice of either moving to the line. I'm grabbing the wrong guy. This guy. Get out of the way. You can move to the line over here to see whether that ball crosses the line fully touched or untouched. If you can get there. If it's this other post, you're definitely going to start here and move to this side of the goal post for the same reason, to see whether that ball is fully crossed. If it's lower, it's fully crossing the line before it's touched. So I'm positioning the goal umpire here on the line on purpose. You need to literally be on the line so you can see whether or not, and keep this phrase in mind at all times, the whole ball is over the whole line. So if the ball's at any point touching, quote unquote, touching the line and the player gets a hand on it, it is touched. To do that, you need to be either here for this post or here for this post. If there's nobody there, you can actually get right to the post and see if it's up and over the post. But if it's going to go through, you want to make sure that you're on the line and can see whether or not it's touched before or after it crosses, the whole ball crosses the whole line. All right, any other things, Sid?
Yeah, the idea of the boundaries getting the ball back to the center after a goal.
Sure, we can cover that quickly. So here's a goal, right? This guy does a good kick, this gal does a good kick, and it goes through this way, so the ball is down here. Here's how the boundaries retrieve it. The near boundary goes and gets the footy. This boundary goes up here to the top of the goal square, maybe a little higher. Group these things together, move them together. This one, whoa, that's not. Let's undo that. We're going to run the ball up to this boundary umpire and do a little flip handoff, and then peel off to the near corner. This one is going to run up here. I'm going to do this actually. Let's move this guy back and let's move this guy here. This is in the two-man system, you got one field here, one field here. This boundary is bringing up the footy. We'll see that this field umpire is on this side of the circle. Why? Because the ball started here, and that field umpire knows the ball traveling is going to go from here to here, and that this boundary umpire is peeling off to this corner. The second boundary is bringing the ball up. It's going to have to go to this corner. And this boundary is going to peel off to this opposite corner. So you make it easier on the boundary by being off on this side. And in fact, this field umpire, to properly signal, would have the right arm held out, signaling, I want you to come to this side. So as the ball's being run up, this, if you imagine that right arm being out, ball's flipped to the field umpire, boundary goes to the opposite corner, field umpire gets ready for the boundary, or for the ball up. And as soon as this boundary gets to the corner, this one obviously will be here already because it's closer, then you can do the ball up. So when we do the finals at nationals, or we do it anywhere else where we're actually using our boundaries, that is the mechanic that the boundary umpires use to retrieve the footy, whichever side it's on, run to the near corner after handing off, run to the opposite corner, the far opposite corner, handing off to the field umpire. And clearly, this field umpire would move to be opposite the field umpire is doing the ball up. So in this case, you would have both the field and the boundary umpire on the same corner, and that's okay. Right, what else, Sid? Anything
All right,
else?
couple other things. A point about making sure that for goal umpires, make sure that you know, or that you're telling the players where you're at if they want to see the right call. And especially some of these people are much taller than me, except when I am the virtual goalie here. The idea of making sure that they know where you're at so that you can make the right call. Also, making sure that when you do have that call that's right on the line, making sure that you're straddling the line as a goal umpire to make sure that you can see when that ball was touched, and you can be 100% and know the ball was touched either before or after crossing the back of the goal line.
So I just made Darren Henderson a goal umpire, as you can see on the screen here. That's our biggest umpire in our group. So now this umpire can see over the top of everybody. So good points.
I can't do everything for you, Jeff.
You can try, but I appreciate that. Thanks, Dad. All right. Any other comments, Sid, or can I move on to the next one?
It's good right now.
Excellent. All righty. So this is just what it looks like from a different angle. Here's our field umpire. Set the mark, make sure the line is there. You can see the goal umpire behind the goal is lined up on the line, on the mark between the center of the goal line and the mark. You see the two players there. Set it, back up, keep an eye on it. You can see our boundary umpires ready at their posts. Our other field umpire is here to ready to watch the goal square for any infringements down there. So that's what it looks like from this view. Ball, oops, we don't want the player to move, we want the ball to move. Come on. Right, so same thing, ball moves to this post, goal umpire is moving, it's over this post, goal umpire is moving, right, it's over this post, you hand off to that boundary umpire, yours. If it's a behind, hand it back, goal umpire makes the call. If it's out on the full, boundary umpire calls out on the full. Whistle, out on the full, field umpire signals with whistle and repeats, out on the full, and gives the nearest player the ball to kick. Okay? So same stuff, just a little different view, a different angle to see what it looks like. All right, now let's do a boundary throw-in. We have a two-man situation here. So can't quite see the whole field because of the way they chopped it, but you got your goal umpire standing over here, just in case that ball comes in. That goal umpire is going to be ready if there's something that needs to be done. We have the boundary umpire here getting ready to throw the ball in, right about the 50. We have our field umpire, who is about 10 yards off from where the Boundary umpire is going to throw it in 5 to 10 yards, maybe off the edge of the boundary line. We have our contest here, the line at which they throw, which is this line here. If I can click on it, there it is. So the boundary umpire should be throwing towards the center circle. The contest is going to happen here. The other field umpire in the two-man system is going to be positioned somewhere in the square based on where all the other players are lining up, keeping track of any holding or anything like that in case there's an infringement that needs to be called off ball. So that's how we line up. In the three-man, it's a little bit different. You're going to have one field umpire over here in this 50. You've got one field umpire over here in this 50. Could be anywhere along here based on where the players are. And then the field umpire who's going to control the throw in is on this side, right over here. Same thing, maybe 10 yards off the line that's going to be thrown, and maybe 5 to 10 yards off the boundary line. The reason for that is the coverage. You have coverage over here. So if the ball continues across the field, you've got coverage over here. If it goes upfield, you got coverage over here. So you don't want to start like you did the two-man over here, because now you're overloaded inside the 50 and nothing is in the middle. So this field umpire in the 3 wants to be over on this side of the contest, because where are they going to go? You can see the arrows here. When that ball gets thrown in, tell the players no holding or anything like that. Let them know you're watching. There is going to be a contest here. You want to be side on when the ball gets there. You want to be side on to that contest. You call play on or an infringement. One of the two will always be the case. It won't be both. It'll be one or the other. Most of the time, the infringements are going to be holding. But if there's no holding or anything else that you need to call, then you call play on, because that tells all the other players that we're back to general play and the throw-in is completed. Then based on where the ball goes, you're probably going to push up into this side of the square. If the ball continues from the contest towards the middle of the field, because the defensive team has it, you want to be able to track that ball as it's moving up, and you're going to be controlling it. If the offense, gets it and it's going to be kicked in, oh, come on. Sorry, guys. There we go. If the offense gets it and the ball goes in here, you're going to be moving probably a little differently. And you're going to be handing off as appropriate, because there's probably, from this area, there's probably going to be a kick in towards the goal square, and you're going to hand off to your partner umpire. If the ball comes out because the defense has it, now we're going the other direction. You're going to be coming back out, tracking with the ball. Let's say there's a kick, not that one, come on. There's a kick upfield. This is still you. This umpire is going to read the play and either move to this corner or the opposite corner to get out of the middle of the field to stay side on. When that ball continues up, you will at some point hand off to your partner once it goes inside the 50. And then this field umpire becomes the #1 umpire in control. And then if there's a kick on goal, you have what we just looked at for about 10 minutes on the other slides. So boundary throw-ins. Starting here in the 3, because you have partners on both sides. If it's the 2, I'll just go back to that slide. If it's a 2, you start on the opposite side. And the reason for that is you're boxing in as many players as possible. When I say boxing in, this is the box where the most players are going to be, and you want the 2 umpires to have as much visual coverage of all the players. Okay. I see more comments in the chat. What have I got, Sid?
Yeah, okay, a lot of good comments and questions. So first of all, boundary umpires, how far are we expecting them to throw the ball in towards the middle of the field when they do their job?
It should land in the center circle. No, I'm kidding. So we really want it to be 20 yards off the boundary line, because you don't want the ball going back out straight away. Which means if they've got a pretty good throw, they can start from the actual boundary line and they can throw it 15 or 20. That's good. If they need to step in 5 yards, that's perfectly acceptable. Get that contest back by letting the boundary umpire and telling them, come in 5 yards, and have them throw in from that point. And then, of course, you'll adjust on the throw and then move as appropriate.
Okay, I think that might have hit two of the comments there. The other one, the free field umpire setup's been mentioned a few times tonight. When should field umpires expect that during the season?
Regionals and nationals, if we can get those into the regional playoff games, playoff games, the finals games, if we have anything like that, depends on how many umpires we have available. Don't want to kill umpires trying to run too many umpires too often. And certainly for the Division I and Division II, if we can, championships at nationals, those will be 3-man. If we have plenty of umpires and they want to get the experience at other games or during a regional tournament, if we have enough umpires, they want to get that experience, we can do that. If you, for some reason, have enough umpires at a regional, not a regional, but a club tournament, for any reason, if you want to go ahead and do that, that's fine. I've heard like Golden Gate has done that. They didn't quite use the right system, but they still did a decent job putting 3 out on the field and covering it. So there's nothing that says you can't do it. It's helpful if you have somebody who's been in the 3-man system before to at least explain what most of the mechanics are.
All right, that should be it for right now, Jeff.
Okay. All righty. So let's move ahead. All right. Now we're going to look at open play with a free kick. We're going to look at it from the overhead view to start with. So we got the red team here has the footy and they have a free kick. There is a defensive player here standing the mark. We have a field umpire here. We have a field umpire downfield. We have boundaries. If we have 2, and I'll just say this for the boundary umpires on the call. One boundary, when the kick is on this side, should actually be on the boundary approximately 2/3 of the way, maybe a little more, about where that kick is going to go. Assuming this kick is going to go 30 to 40 yards downfield, you want to be roughly down here, ready for in case that ball spills out. Kick goes boom, spills out, boundary's ready to go. This boundary over here should not be on the boundary. This boundary can cheat all the way into the circle or to the square. Why is that? Because when that ball moves upfield, it goes up here, moves up here, gets a shot on goal. You want to cut down on your running. This is the work smarter, not harder part of it. You know the kick's going, so you can be down here already. Kick starts to go upfield. Now you're just going to be simply moving towards the goalpost as that ball continues to move upfield. When it gets to be within kicking range for goal and you see there's a mark, you then sprint from here down to the goals. That is less running than starting here, having to run all the way around the boundary to get where you want to be. Okay, so that's where the fields want to position themselves. Assuming this square is 50, that's a little bit far apart. This field would more likely be up here, side on to the contest, depending on the size of your field. If you're on a metro field, this may only be 20 or 25 yards. Okay. Now, assuming that they kick downfield, right? So we're going to use this arrow up here as the first kicking line. So this field umpire is controlling the mark and the player on the mark, and then the player kicking the ball. So this player is on the mark, so you're going to hold them until you call play on. Let's just assume they do a normal kick. We're not going to play on yet. They kick downfield. This player, the defensive player, doesn't do anything wrong, so everything's good. What do you do here as this field umpire? You are assuming it's a reasonably good kick. The 5-10 yard kick, you're not going to hand off. 25 or more, you're absolutely handing off to your partner. That kick looks like when it leaves the boot, it's going downfield. You simply call yours, or if I'm working with, say, Darren, I'll say, Darren, yours. Here's Darren down here. He's going to be 20, 25 off this contest, so he can see any pushing in the back, looking for high contact, any arm chops, etc. for this contest. All right. Most, if not all, field umpires should have this well under control. I don't see any comments in the chat yet, so I'm assuming that's okay. Here's what happens next. Let's just assume that there's a good kick and a good mark taken. So this guy here takes the mark, and Darren blows his whistle and signals mark. Both hands up. That's a mark. Arm goes out, signaling he's going to have his free kick. And let's assume that he's going to take a free kick from a set shot and not play on. What happens now? I, as this field umpire, I've handed off to Darren, so I'm now the number 2. But I also see what's probably happening And Darren's probably going to pay a mark, and he's probably going to be needing to hand off to me and go downfield. I am cheating up on that kick, expecting that to happen. He pays the mark, puts his arm out. It's not an infringement, it's a mark. I can then immediately say, Darren, push. He hears it and can release immediately to run downfield to where that next contest is. Well, I come up to control this contest. Okay. He moves downfield. He's going to be somewhere inside the 50, most likely where that next kick is most likely to be. And then we just simply have a repeat of what we had before. This field umpire is controlling the mark, the player on the mark and the kicker. Darren is now the number 2 because I've pushed him downfield to control the mark, and he is ready for whatever happens next. All right, pausing again, making sure everybody understands what this field umpire does on that longer kick, not waiting for the mark to happen, anticipating what's going to happen and cheating up. I don't want to have to run 40 yards because I waited for the mark. I can start cheating up and make my life a heck of a lot easier by being 20 yards closer by the time that call is made. Then I can easily control the mark and give Darren plenty of time to push up. Okay, comments, questions on this? All righty, good deal. Now, let's move this back and let's assume that we're going to do a switch. So let's say, let's get this guy out of here. Let's just say that there's an open paddock over here. And so instead of kicking downfield, they're going to switch it and try and use the open end of the field. So, oops, I did that wrong, didn't I? Oops, that way. All right. So this player here is going to turn to kick the ball this way, right? Because he's got a player standing by himself with nobody within 30 yards. When he steps off that line, that very first step, as Steve said, you are calling play on because now this guy can move, right? That kick goes, and now you are still in control. So if I'm the one here, Darren's here, I am going to then position myself for this kick. And because that person's by himself, I am anticipating that he is going to mark it and start running his butt up field. So instead of coming here and saying, I'm going to be side on in case he wants to go back and take a set shot, that's not going to happen. I'm anticipating that he is going to want to go upfield. So I'm going to start pushing upfield because when he grabs that ball, he is most likely going out here with the footy. Right. When he catches it, whistle, mark, play on, arms in the air for play on. Darren sees that happening or hears it. He may be focused on this contest, but when he hears play on, as soon as this guy comes off his line, he knows something that's not going to happen in this contest here because that ball is not coming. I am still in control. He will then look and sees the kick going over here. He knows what to do next. He is going to get downfield because he needs to support me as that ball is coming upfield for that next kick. This guy grabs it, runs upfield. Bum, 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 bum. He runs 15. He takes a bounce. He keeps going. Right? You keep going, but you don't get too close. Right? This is 25 from the edge of the square to the center of the circle. He then says, uh-oh. This boundary out of here. Uh-oh. Defense is going to stop me from going all the way and kicking goal. So he decides, move these two guys down here. He decides he's going to kick into a forward. Boom, kick goes. What do I do on that longer kick? Exact same I was going to do up here for a longer kick. Longer kick goes. I'm shouting out to Darren, who's been moving into position to get side on. Darren, yours. The other thing I have to do in this particular circumstance, because this player may be closing in, is I will not watch that ball under any circumstances ever, period. That is a level 2 thing if you want to get your advancement. Why? Because if I watch that ball going downfield and this guy comes up and smashes this player up here, hits him late, hits him high, hits him low, runs through him because the kick was gone, takes 3 more steps and still runs through him, and I don't call it, that's on me. My eyes are on this contest for at least 1, if not 2 more seconds before I even worry about what happened downfield. I've got a partner down here who's going to handle that for me. I don't have to worry about what's happened. Darren knows that ball's coming because I've handed off to him. So he's going to be about 20, 25 off. He doesn't even have to know where the ball's going. All he has to do as he's coming in for this contest is watch for these players. Right? These players, let's just put them side by side. When that ball's coming in, If that ball is kicked wide, these players are going to go out here. He doesn't have to watch the arc where that ball is going. He knows where that ball is going because he's watching those players because they're watching the ball and he can keep moving. If it comes in towards him because it's kicked to the middle of the field, move all these three things up. It's kicked in here. He was coming in this way, but whoa, they're coming at me. I'm going to back out. All right. And now I'm still 20 off and I'm still side on to the contest. Okay. Move the arrows to follow with that. So that's what's happening here. I'm handing off. I'm keeping my eyes on this contest for any late stuff. If there is, I'm calling a downfield. I will blow my whistle and call downfield and point downfield. And then Darren knows he's going to give the ball to the player who is nearest to the fall of the ball. If that doesn't happen, clean kick, nobody does anything stupid. He's going to make whatever decision he has to make on this contest. Free kick, ball spills out, play on, infringement, whatever. He's in control. All right, let me stop there again. I see a couple more comments in the chat. What else we got, Sid?
Oh, Caleb had some thoughts amplifying what you were saying about keeping moving, cheating up the field, pushing your partner, and be ready to take the mark so your partner can push.
Yep. Okay. All right. So here's what it also looks like. If the play is starting out, I'm over here. Darren's the one who does the ball up. The play goes over, plays over here, and that ball is going to go upfield, right? So we didn't have a free kick. The ball is free. Somebody picks up and starts running with it, right? And red has it. So they're going to go to our right on the screen. Darren does not have a partner down there. So he knows that his partner is over here on his left, and his partner will be pushing up. That's the arrow. I am going to have to push up to help him, and that ball gets kicked downfield. He needs to anticipate that as soon as it looks like there's a kick, because his angle would be on this arrow to try and, as best he can, get down side on for that kick. And I'm following up again to make sure that when that kick goes, nothing stupid happens here with late hits, no dangerous tackles, anything like that. So when you don't have your partner ahead, you have to be aware that you need to start cheating. Right? Okay, red's got it. He looks like he's gonna be able to get himself free and get a kick. I can start moving downfield. Kick goes, keep going, try and get side on. Back here, I started back here because of where the play was. I need to anticipate that. I see red picked up the footy. I'm not going to hang back here and say, well, that ball's in Darren's half the field. I'll just hang back here in case it comes back to my half the field. That's not going to get you accreditation. You need to be moving upfield to anticipate when red has possession that that ball is going to keep moving. And if it doesn't, if it's still going to be under a contest here, I still want to be 20 to 25 off, right? This is a 50-meter square. I'm about 30, maybe even 35 at this point. Blue picks it up and wants to kick this direction. I'm in good position to handle whatever happens here, and Darren can hand off to me. He needs to move up here if red gets possession and pushes up towards goal. Now I need to come up and support because that kick is out here. He's going to pay the free kick. I'm going to want to push up to take that mark, and he's going to push down here so he can be watching the goal square on the free kick. And that's what we showed on that first couple slides, is those free kicks. So from an overhead view, that's what that looks like when you have your partner on your left, or your the ball goes to the side your partner's not on. You need to be ready to push up field. Okay, and as the goalie, you would be sliding out here because where's the kick coming from? Opposite side of the field. I'll use this arrow. That kick comes in to the center of the goal line. You want to be on line with that line from the center of the goal to the mark. Okay. Questions, comments from anybody? Okay. Here's what that looks like when that happens. Darren's pushed down, so you can keep an eye on the goal square. I've taken the mark. We have our goalie set up here. The boundaries have moved down, right? You see on the goal lines now, they've told their goalie they're there to help out. That's what that looks like from an overhead perspective once it's set up. Okay. I think that might be it. So We'll take a few minutes and then we'll call it quits. This is what it looks like in the 3-man system. So field umpire, field umpire, field umpire. The way they start in the field, this one has control of this 50. This one has control of this 50 zone. This field umpire has everything in the middle. Boundaries started out, missing a boundary, not the boundary here. So the boundaries are pushed in because the ball is on this side of the field. It's going to go to our right. This boundary slides down. This boundary was here because the ball is on his side out the boundary line. He slides down or she slides down. As that ball gets kicked in, this back umpire in the 50 moves up a bit into the square. Remember that I think it was the second slide that showed that umpire hanging out in the square, making sure nobody does anything stupid. Kick goes in. If it's near the 50, the middle umpire, the central umpire, is going to keep control. The deeper it goes into the 50 zone, you hand off to the other umpire. Assuming that ball gets moved in reasonably far, you might just leave that field umpire to take control by themselves, right? So this field umpire would just control the mark and the kick. If it's a little further out, probably better for this field umpire to come up, okay, mark, boom, field umpires sliding up to here to take the mark, just like we showed in the other slides. Boundaries are set, goalies are set, 3 fields, one here to watch the square, one here to watch the contest, and this one here ready to hang out and for play to reverse and just keep an eye out for anything stupid. I think that was everything. Yeah. Okay. So in the 3-man, that's what happens. This field umpire in the middle controls the middle, and these two control the 50s. Anything on the line, you just have to use your best judgment about who should probably have control. That ball's here. You want to box in the play as best you can. So this field umpire is probably going to be over here. And this one here, again, boxing in the play. Oops, that's not it. Yeah, it's not going to do it for me. That might do it. Nope. Sorry. All right. So that gives you an idea in the 3-man system how the field umpires are moving. Right. I don't see any other comments in the chat. We're at 8:15, which is just over an hour and what about an hour and 8 minutes that we've been going. So I'm going to stop here from the interactive portion of the video. And if there's questions, we'll do those right now. If there aren't, then I'll say thank you to everybody who's on the call. And I'm going to say thank you in advance to those that are watching this later for any comments, questions, and follow-up, especially as those of you who are working on accreditation to the next level. By all means, come back, watch this, think about it, have questions. This is the kind of stuff that's going to help you with your reaccreditation and your accreditation advancement. So thank you for your, I don't see any questions at this point. So thank you for your time. If you need to hang up, great, do so. Have a great rest of your night. And if anybody has a question they want to hang out, I'll hang out for a few more minutes in case there's questions that somebody wants to ask afterwards. All right. So go ahead and stop the recording, Sid.